enjoy reading gets adapted into a movie or TV series, I get excited, even though I'm not much of a movie person. I finally get to share these great stories to my friends who aren't into reading or don't read much but binge a series on Netflix or wherever like there's no tomorrow. It adds motivation for me and acts as a sort of what to read next prompt. Um, Say, for example, Dune by Frank Herbert. I kept seeing it in bookstores and heard of it being talked about when science fiction is the topic at various book clubs. So I bought a copy because it was a pretty edition and stashed it on my bookshelf to sit and gather dust until I felt like reading it. Then came the photos released of the coming movie adaptation and hype was up. So I went to Google to check out when the release date is, and lo and behold, it's December of this year, December 2020. I just knew then that I had to read it before December rolls over. That is if it doesn't get delayed. Which brings us to the question, read before or after the adaptation? So most bookworms would give you a resounding, of course, read first. See, the thing with watching the movie first is it does take away a bit from our imagination. Instead of conjuring the image of the characters or the setting ourselves, we are instead influenced by what we have seen on screen, and it's going to be difficult to imagine anything else. The problem there is, adaptations are not required to follow everything on the source material. For example, movie adaptations of Picture of Dorian Gray. Dorian usually has actors with black hair, when he was written in the books as blonde. This is probably because black hair looks edgier or something. Then there's adjustment of ages. In Game of Thrones, Rob and Jon were 14 years old in the books, but were 16 in the adaptation. Not that huge of a big difference. But Joffrey was 12 in the books. 12. He was aged up to 16 in the series. That's a huge age gap. And then, don't let me get started with how they butchered Aang's persona in the live-action adaptation of The Last Airbender. Let's forget that even happened. And sometimes, we even get good movies loved by many, but don't stay true to the source material. Let me point you to the direction of Stephen King's The Shining. The author himself was not happy with it. Also, Percy Jackson, anyone? Yeah. The worst kind of adaptation is when they change the persona of the characters themselves, which essentially changes the story for the most part. For most people whose first exposure to the story is through adaptation, reading the original source material will be highly influenced by what the adaptations have shown. Taking the age of Joffrey again, from Game of Thrones. Imagine reading about a boy so cruel at age 12. The impact of that is highly different if he was 16, as depicted in the TV series. It does change the way the story is received. The level of brutality is just different from you. I mean, it's 12 and 16, that's 4 years difference. But let's take a look at the other side of things. Not all books are easy to get into, especially the classics with their writing. This is where adaptation stepped in. For example, I wanted to read Pride and Prejudice, but getting past the first few chapters was just so difficult for me that I dropped the book a number of times, never even getting to the middle of it. Then I saw the 2005 adaptation, starring Keira Knightley. There was a lot of talk on how the setting of the movie wasn't really accurate to the books, but it didn't matter to me because what the movie did was help me understand what the book is about. It gave me an overview of the book and helped me understand the things that I had struggled reading about. So I went back to the book, reread it, and it was a breeze to go through after that. Then I discovered the tons of other Pride and Prejudice adaptations and proceeded to watch those too. And I have since become Pride and Prejudice trash. Yes, I was imagining the movie actors while reading the book, but the important part there was it helped me get through the book and enjoy reading it. For another example, we have Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. The novel was published 2008 and the main character was using a diary to log her thoughts. When it was adapted into a movie in 2014, This written form was changed into video form. So instead of writing, Christine, the main character, now uses a camera to record herself. This is a welcome change because it modernized the story and make it more relatable to the current decade. I read it first and enjoyed the book better only because the movie was kinda slow in some parts for a thriller. The changes though I found fun and actually made more sense. Another example is Polinick's Fight Club. His writing is definitely something not everyone's going to like, but the 1999 movie was made really well that if you really can't get into the book, you can just watch the movie and have fun with that. The best kind of adaptation though is when the author himself gets hands-on during the whole process, which is a rare thing, which brings us to Good Omens. It's a great adaptation and I recommend watching it and reading the book or whichever you prefer. But even if the author is hands-on, as Neil Gaiman was to Good Omens, sometimes our imagination will not align with theirs, and that's okay too. What I've decided to do the past few years is read the book before the movie if I can, and I usually don't even get to watching the adaptation at all. And if getting through the book is difficult for me, I'll get to the adaptation, then revisit the book if I enjoyed it. But if it's a highly anticipated adaptation and I have people who want to watch it together, then I won't hold myself from getting the adaptation before the book, because at the end of the day, I just want a good story. This brings me to another topic pertaining to adaptations and book collectors, and that's cover art changes. So once they get an adaptation, books start getting these things written on them promoting the adaptation, which is usually subtle and ones I've learned to tolerate. The new covers after the adaptation gets released though is just especially those that look like stickers but aren't, or even if they really are stickers, I just want to rip them out so they can stop uglifying the book's art. The worst offender though is when it features the faces of the cast of the adaptation and they look like they're just pasted on there. Here's an example. Look at the difference of the before and after cover arts of Inkheart. This one's 2004 and the other is 2008. The 2004 cover art is just okay for me, and the adaptation promotion can be easily ignored, but look at this 2008 edition. I love Brandon Fraser as Mo, but if I can just not have this book, I would ignore its existence. Unfortunately, I wanted the rest of the series to match my copy, and the guy selling his copy sold it as a set, so here I am. I really don't get why most don't even bother to put a little more effort into designing movie tie-in cover arts. It just looks trashy, and the worst part is when the adaptation doesn't get as much traction as projected and it gets discontinued and now the covers don't match. Inkheart is a translated novel from German to English and isn't really new, so getting a set that matches isn't easy. And for other books, sometimes the only book you can easily get is the movie tie-in edition, especially for newer releases. But not all are hideous. Some do get it right, and admittedly, some even look better in the first edition cover arts, if having a real human face there doesn't bother you. Say for example, If I Stay by Gail Forman. I actually prefer the movie tie-in edition than the first edition covers. But unfortunately, it only had one movie, so the second book, the sequel, does not have a matching cover to the movie tie-in. So there's that. What are your thoughts? Do adaptation promotions and cover arts bother you, or it doesn't matter? See you in the